I feel like my life is over. After nearly 18 years of marriage, my wife told me we should separate and now won't talk to me. We got married and had kids in our early 20s. Throughout our marriage, I've had jobs that require quite a bit of travel. I was not unaware of the difficulties that come with that arrangement. It was something we talked about often. I hated the travel. My wife knew I hated the travel. I went back to school while working full-time to change careers into something else that would allow me to be home every night and still give us stability. The whole career change from the initial idea to actually landing a job took longer than I'd hoped, but I eventually made it. The problem was that the new job was halfway across the country, but at least in an area close to my family. I struggled with deciding what to do. My wife and I discussed it numerous times. I accepted the job. We continued to discuss as the time to actually transition to the new job and location approached. We decided that the way to do things would be for me to go ahead to the new job while the kids finished the school year in their current school. It would allow me some time to feel out the new job before we moved and give me an opportunity to find a house. The whole time, I'd been telling my wife to say the word if she didn't want to move and I'd ask for my old job back. I started the new job a couple months ago. It's an adjustment for sure, but seems like something I could continue to do at least for a while. We listed our old house. It went under contract in 3 days. My wife and I were sending house listings back and forth. I saw a bunch of them. We narrowed it down to a few for her to come and see in person with me. We decided on one and she seemed excited about it. We started the negotiation process. On Thursday night, we were down to what seemed like the final counteroffer that we were going to accept. We talked over FaceTime about it. I told her one last time that we could still back out if she was uncertain about it. I gave it some more thought and signed the offer. On Friday, my wife had not signed the counter. She drove to go visit her dad for the weekend, which was something she had planned on doing, so no surprise there. She ignored me and our realtor for the entire weekend. When she got back on Sunday, she texted me saying she wasn't going to sign. I asked what the plan was. That's when she said she thinks we should talk about separating. I asked why, but only for things like, we're just not right for each other, I need to work on myself, we got married too young. She won't answer the phone or even respond to any questions about saving the marriage. I'm gutted. Completely numb. We went from negotiating for a new house to headed for divorce and not speaking in the span of a weekend. I didn't sleep at all Sunday night and maybe a few hours Monday night. I've barely eaten anything. My stomach is in knots. I don't know what to do. I have no idea what her plans are. I'm at a brand new job. I don't have a permanent residence here yet. The only positive is that my family is nearby. If I were to go back to the old job, I still don't think she'd entertain the idea of saving our marriage. My house there is under contract. My kids are there. My dogs are there. Almost everything I own is there. I'll soon have nowhere to live if I don't do something, but I feel paralyzed. I've never been so lost. It's like my whole future is gone. This has to get better at some point, right? Update: I flew home to talk in person because she wouldn't really talk about it over the phone. She picked me up from the airport but wouldn't talk on the way to the house because our 16-year-old was in the car. When we got to the house, she said it was too late to talk. We went to sleep. The next day was her birthday. She spent the day out with her friends. I took my daughter to pick out some flowers and a card for her mother. I hung out with the kids all day. We went out for lunch, watched some movies together, and I cooked dinner. Over dinner, we talked about the situation and what their understanding and expectations were. They were under the impression that nothing was decided yet and the desire for a separation was mutual. I told them the truth. I have no desire to separate from their mother and had no idea she felt that way until she dropped the news on me. I did not ask them what they thought about it, but they both said they felt that it was unfair for her to do this without at least trying to work it out. My daughter told me that my wife has been talking about the past and things she wanted to do before she became a mom a lot. She also mentioned that my wife's ex-stepmother was on the phone while my wife was texting me about separating. For some reason, it hurts more to know she was coached during those moments, although I suspected that was probably the case. It's such an intimate emotional moment and it wasn't even worth it for her to come up with her own thoughts while effectively ending a nearly 2-decade relationship. The kids also didn't know that they wouldn't be living in the house anymore. There's less than a month until the closing, and even less time until the movers come. I let them know they are always welcome to stay with me for any timeframe they choose. My heart still aches for them. I just want to keep us all together so badly, but their mom won't even hear me out. When the wife came home she showered, then sat down on the couch with us and sat on her phone while the rest of us were watching a movie. My daughter went to her room unprompted so her mother and I could talk. I got no new answers about the reasoning behind the separation. I asked what the end goal is. She said she doesn't really know, and doesn't want me to have false hope. We talked about what her plans are for her living arrangement, etc. She doesn't have a place lined up. She seems to think it's going to be easy for her to find a house she can rent that will accommodate her, our kids, and our 3 dogs. I am definitely not so sure about that. She mentioned joining the military because she was considering it before she met me. We agreed that the kids are old enough to choose where they live, and started talking about how we would divide up our belongings. The next day, she started taking decor off the walls to start preparing for the movers. It was the first thing my daughter mentioned when she woke up. She asked why all the stuff had been taken down. I told her we have to start preparing for the move. She started to cry. I was gutted. My wife drove me back to the airport. When we arrived, she got out of the car and came around to my side. She gave me a long, lingering hug and began to cry. When I started to walk away, she told me she loves me. It left me struggling to choke back tears as I walked through the airport and sat at the gate. When my flight landed, I had a long text from her saying how sorry she was for the pain she's caused, but she needs some time alone to heal her heart. She thanked me for being an excellent provider for our family and told me she believes I'm a good person. The whole thing has been a roller coaster for me. One minute I can't see a future for myself, the next I'm angry about how she chose to do this. I'll start to feel normal briefly, then start all over again. I'm confused about what her actual thoughts are. She says one thing, but then does something to make me think there could be some regrets. But would I want to stay together now after something like this? Update 2. I've received a few messages asking for an update to my previous post. I guess some folks are invested in my story. I wish there was positive news to share, but that's not the case. The end of our marriage is going forward at what feels like breakneck speed. We each have rented our own places halfway across the country from each other. She still won't entertain efforts to reconcile. She still gets angry when I ask questions. She did finally admit she never wanted to move to the new location. She just told me what she thought I wanted to hear. When I ask how she could do this without even giving me a chance to address whatever problems we've had, she talks about one time she mentioned something 12 years ago. I thought that was resolved since it never came up again. I asked if she plans to file for divorce. She doesn't know. I asked what she plans to do with her engagement and wedding rings. She acted offended that I would even ask and said she's keeping them. I asked if she's planning to start dating other people. She laughed and said no. She just wants to be alone for a while. She thinks the kids should stay with me for the summer, so we bought them one-way tickets. I've been back home twice since my last update. Or, what used to be home. The first time was to watch my son graduate high school. It should have been a celebration of his achievement, but was overshadowed by the situation between my wife and me. Most of her family was there for the graduation. It wasn't as awkward being around them as I expected. I asked some if we could stay in touch if it wouldn't be too weird. The response I got was that, we'll always be family. I'm currently home, now watching movers empty out the house we lived in for most of our kids' childhood. My STBXW is moving the stuff she wants to her new place. Her brother is here helping. I've spent a lot of time here talking with him. We talked over some drinks one night and he told me doesn't agree with her decision at all. He thinks she's going through a funk and she's going to realize this separation is a mistake. But he doesn't believe I should wait around for her. After a few too many drinks and that last part about not waiting around ringing in my head, I downloaded a couple of dating apps. It's not something I had even considered before. It's just too soon for me. The second or third profile I came across on both apps was my wife. I asked her about it the next day because she had just told me she doesn't have any plans to date anybody. She got upset and claims she just wanted to see what those apps are like. Obviously, her plan is to send the kids with me so she can bring randoms to her place without the kids telling me. Or maybe she'll feel less guilty about it if they aren't there. So, at this point there's a near zero chance that our marriage will be saved. I'm looking forward to having my kids with me and hoping I can learn to accept that the person I was married to doesn't exist anymore.